At Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. All right, welcome everybody to Dave Cooper Live. Nearly half of Americans can't afford their monthly rent, and millions every day are battling just to stay afloat. But what happens when that battle ends? What are people capable of when they aren't fighting for survival every single day? Today on Dave Cooper Live, we're talking with Darren Christensen, co-founder of ModMod Modular, who believes the answer lies in building durable, high-performance, truly affordable homes, not temporary fixes or disposable housing. We'll explore Darren's powerful story, the moment that changed his family's trajectory, and the mission that drives ModMod to make America affordable again. But first, before we get into any of all of that, we need to have a word from our supporting members, so stay tuned. Brought to you by GreatTech, developers of the complete light gauge steel and wood framing software for Revit StruxSoft. Offsite, modular, or prefabricated, StruxSoft Framer turns Revit into a powerful manufacturing tool, automating every step of the DFMA process from design to final delivery. StruxSoft doesn't just work with Revit, it transforms it. Jumpstart your designs at StruxSoftSolutions.com. Halleck Ltd. has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and producing innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the United States and the world. Check out their machine buyer's guide for off-site modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Go to their website, halleckltd.com. All right, we are at the Build Show in Toronto, so we are live on location today. So stay tuned for some special coverage and showing you what this show is all about. And you'll be surprised, there's quite a few modular manufacturers here, and some even came from Europe. So if that's not telling on where the industry's heading, I'm not sure what is. But we can't do any or all of this without all of our supporting members, to include all the folks you see going across the ticker below. We'd love to have you as part of our supporting members as well. So if you're interested, hey, reach out to us. We'd love for you to join us. All right. Brought to you by GreatTech. All right. Without further ado, let's bring on our good friend, Darren Christensen. Darren, how are you, sir?
Living the dream. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Hey, I love living the dream, man. You got to tell me how you do it.
It's, nightmares are come out of dreams as well too. So it's kind of how you look at it.
Hey, listen, I mean, you're in the modular manufacturing business. There's ups and downs with everything. So With that said, listen, before we hop into ModMod Modular Manufacturing, I love that name, by the way, ModMod Modular Manufacturing. I'm going to get my kids to say it like 5 times
Yeah, it's
straight.
fun to say.
It is fun to say. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we're going to have your lovely wife and co-founder on the show, and I'm sure she will not go easy on you. But you only have a minute to do it. Floor is yours.
I'm Darren Christensen, founder of ModMod Modular, like you said, located in Austin, Texas. And yeah, I've been born and raised in Austin, bounced around the country in school, and came back to Texas. Go back and everything. There's a lot we could cover, but this entire industry is about efficiency, right? Offsite construction and manufacturing. And I love me some efficiency. In fact, I discovered this love for efficiency when I was 14. I was building an engine for my first vehicle, 1985 Toyota pickup. And I fell in love with how all of the pieces and assemblies work together and how I could tweak things to change the output, to make things more efficient. And I've been chasing those first principles ever since, and been in construction development for about 15 years. And it's funny how these things work, because I kind of started ModMod out of spite. We were doing a development, bringing in somebody else's modular product, and it was an absolute disaster. So much so that I said, screw it, I'll do it myself. And so I did. And here I am living my best life.
Everything starts from somewhere, right? And I always say, and you did it out of spite, but that spite turned into a passion, is what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have a past, similar to ours. When Jennifer and I started Dave Cooper Live, or years before in 2008, when the market crashed, housing got real tough. Everybody was losing their jobs. We were losing our work, right? And it drove more and more passion for us. And that's really where we got into the offsite space heavily moving forward. You guys have kind of a similar story. I mean, you kind of ran across some financial hard times, it sounds like, and then you built a tiny home. So all of this kind of just snowballed into what it is today. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a series of pivots to make the business more efficient, and we can go into it. I was working for Sears at the time, running their stores, and a store in Little Waco, Texas, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I made that the 8th most profitable store in the nation out of 850 stores. And with a company that didn't want to innovate at all, but I wasn't really getting a return from that. I was making huge profits for another company. And I looked at my circumstances and I was like, well, I'm never going to be able to pay off my student loans. And my house in 2008, housing was doing weird things and we were upside down on my house. So we were looking at, like, what are we doing and how are we putting so much effort into this? We turned around and liquidated everything we could, sold everything we could, and we were still in $350,000 worth of debt. So we bought this trashed piece of land out in the country and we built a tiny house. It was the first structure I built that was like an entire structure outside of just a remodel or something. And yeah, we were able to reduce our living expenses by like 80%, which allowed us to get out of debt within a few years. And then we were able to start investing in things and investing in other people's, investing in ourselves and starting businesses and turning a few of those over. We were able to make some real ground. And I don't think most people will take those actions as drastically as we did and live as sparsely as we did, because we didn't have plumbing there for a while. And every milestone that we could build into this thing was huge for us at the time. But I think a lot of people could make use of more affordable housing. That's our largest expense. And when you look at the numbers, if somebody's paying 30% of their gross income on housing, they're living paycheck to paycheck with no savings. It's just how the numbers work. Yeah, and we want to do something to remedy that, or offer people a chance to get a leg up in life.
Right. So going from Sears, hopefully you stole all their plan books for the first Sears and Roebuck's kit home, so you have all that in your back pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they actually did a really nice job of it, and they're still standing today. So, tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, right? So you out of spite, you started ModMod. Walk us through what ModMod is, just at its core. What problem are you solving?
So the pitch generally with offsite construction is better, faster, cheaper. And it's rare that you get two, let alone all three of those. And what we've found is there's some big players in the market that do some things well and other things not very well at all. But what we wanted was a product that we would feel comfortable holding thousands of long term. If you look at the entire ecosystem around affordable housing, it's not just getting an affordable product out there. It's everything that goes into making that happen. So the investors that bring those developments into play need to make a profit, and they need to be comfortable holding that product long term so that the assets don't keep getting traded. Because every time an asset gets traded, then the rents inexplicably go up for no reason, right? And that's not sustainable. It doesn't help anybody. Everybody's paying hot potato with the asset, and that's why affordable housing really hasn't done anything, because it's been essentially mobile homes and RVs, which are a disposable product that nobody wants to hold on to.
For sure.
So we're going. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
We're taking a different approach and taking what we learned from property management and from doing rehabs ourselves. We're taking all those components that we've seen fail in housing and building around those. And the big piece of that is that your ongoing capital expenses are a lot less because we've designed all those failure points out of the homes. And we look at the whole piece. Like I said, I love efficiency, right? Most companies come in looking at things. They look at two places to cut expenses. It's generally your input costs or your material and your labor. And they'll cut those two things first. And usually what they're doing is shooting themselves in the foot for another business practice that isn't sustainable. A lot of our building materials will cost 2 to 4 times X the builder grade materials, but because they're a lot easier to install and they have a lot less continuing problems down the road, it actually makes it comparable in price. So we can have a much better product for the same price as what other people are doing. And when you say better, faster, cheaper, it kind of shows in a lot of these other manufacturers that are attempting to do something, but using those first two principles for cutting costs.
Isn't it the longevity, right? I mean, this is where people, I think, fail, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head, so to speak. Is, people don't look at the full life cycle of a project, right? That usually begins with a price quote, costing, estimating, the construction, right? And then it ends when they turn over the keys. And then this whole warranty and failure parts just over here as part of warranties. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. We have to look at the entire life cycle of what a true product is to get to that real number.
Exactly. Yeah. What do those warranty expenses end up actually costing the business? And then it's an entire ecosystem. What we've built and all the case studies and everything that we've done, it isn't just the product. It isn't just the developers and the investors that come into these things. It's actually building a community around the product, because when we build community, people stay longer. And when they stay longer, you have less overhead, you have less turnover, you have less make readies that you have to do. And then all those just suck profits out of things. So we're really delivering a handbook to these developers on how to be as profitable as possible.
Yeah. And do you guys self-develop, or do you only work for developers? Walk us through kind of what your sales pipeline looks like.
So right now we're focusing on just selling the product to other developers. We'd love to get back into development, but we know our main priority, our main focus has to be on ramping production this year or this next upcoming year.
Got it. We got some slides here. It has your mission, your vision, all that. Why don't you walk us through what we're looking at here?
Yeah, mission we've been hitting on. It's people can't afford market rents, and there's so much growth happening in certain sectors of the country. What we found, again, the ecosystem is we can be 30, 45 minutes outside of pretty much any major metropolitan area. We can do single level apartments, which are cheaper to build on cheaper land, and take all of these principles together to make it a huge profit margin. We've got a big profit margin in our product. The investors and developers buying this thing, and then most importantly, which is generally overlooked, is the end user and how can we have the best life possible for these people. There's some other practices in that, like doing all bills paid. So you make things a lot simpler for them. You make it easier for them to budget, and then you can line up billing with their pay schedule as well. So they're not having to budget long term, like paying once a month, but they get paid twice a month. So it's we want to make it easy for them to pay their bills in a responsible manner.
Walk me through, say I'm a customer of a developer or what have you. How does that work? Like walk me through that journey as a client that, is going to get, less expensive living costs.
Yeah. So we build a product, and typically we're going a little bit smaller square footage than would be typical, but not atypical of what was being built a few decades ago. The past few decades, our housing sizes have ballooned, and it's not entirely necessary. So it'll be a little bit smaller square footage, and we would advise, and when we start doing developments again, we'll do this as well, going where it's the best bang for your buck for property, and doing single level apartment complexes means you don't have to have nearly the infrastructure or nearly the amount of on-site finish out, because that's another thing that's really hard to control costs on. This is what we learned in 2020 when the world went sideways, logistics got hard. You couldn't control all of those costs with subcontractors. It got really difficult to keep those in line. So we brought everything in house, and that's a great thing about manufacturing, is everything's in house, and we can really control our costs a lot better. But when things get on site, that's another story. So another thing that we do differently is keeping everything as turnkey as possible, leaving the factory, and minimizing what needs to be done on site. So even if there's a developer that doesn't have their own teams, we can get you 90% of the way there without having huge variables for unknowns.
Love it. So here's a good question that everybody's been asking, right? We've been saying why now in housing for a lot of years. Walk us through your why now. And you've been kind of hitting on most of this.
It's never been a better time. There's a huge gap in the market for this. It's not typically what's been built for the longest time. Everybody's been going after middle market. And if you think about it, the middle market is overbuilt, and it is your most discerning client. They have the most options out there. They're going to be the pickiest. And we're going after new stock of the bottom end of the scale for rents. And like I said, there's so many people that need it. And in Texas specifically, we're perfectly situated to handle that Texas triangle. Those are huge growth centers, having tens of millions of people, not tens of millions, like tens of thousands of people coming in and needing housing, right? When you take all the factors into play right now with housing situations, the interest rates being higher, there isn't a lack of housing in Texas, Central Texas specifically. There's a lack of affordable housing. And I think that's pretty common across the country. We way overbuilt in Central Texas, but we didn't build things that people can really afford.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of options out there for truly affordable housing. And the ones that are out there are typically mobile homes and RVs, but that really requires the end user to own the structure in most cases, because again, the investors don't want to own those disposable products. So the only affordable housing option that's out there at any scale is co-living, is shared housing, where you have roommates. And we took a lot of data from that. We can go over that if you want, but we learned a ton from that information and built a product and process around that.
So is that what sets you apart from other modular builders that are out there, or ADU builders? Is the research and the efficiencies that you've put in place?
I think it's that we look at the whole life cycle of all parties involved and make it a win for everyone.
Got it. So moving forward then, all right, so developers are kind of your clients. Why don't you walk us through, your factory a little bit, and then let's talk about the product. I'm assuming you're using wood construction versus light gauge steel and so forth. We have some of this part of the slide deck here. Let me put that back on the screen for you. So what are we looking at here?
So this is our MVP factory, minimum viable product, to do all of our prototyping and figure everything out. And what's so common in offsite construction is huge overheads. You have these massive structures that require a ton of overhead, ton of resources, ton of capital to maintain. And we wanted to have a balance between on-site construction and your typical off-site construction, where we can minimize our overhead as much as possible. If we can minimize that, then we can keep our costs much lower to anybody that's buying the product. We can do just as well and not have huge expenses with equipment like gantries. We don't have any gantry cranes. We develop systems to tilt up the walls without having hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment like that. We can have 12-foot wall sections, for example, and a couple of guys can just lift those up safely and can do that all day long. So there's lots of those things we look at. We won't bring in expensive equipment unless it pays itself out, pays for itself within a year. There's tons of expansion we can do, but we're coming at it not from what this is the way it's always been done. In fact, that's grounds for being fired in my company. If somebody says that, well, that's the way it's always been done. Because no, we want to see if there's innovation that we can make use of. And I've got a incentive program with my guys that if they bring me a better way to do something that doesn't compromise integrity or safety, then they get a bonus and we implement it.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. A good friend of mine, Diego Rivera, ModMod Modular out in California, has a similar program. He calls it the $100 idea. If you have a $100 idea that changes, and he'll walk around the factory with $100 in his pocket, and if something is a good idea and they're going to implement it, he goes and people, $100 is a lot of money, So
yep.
It's great. It's great to incentivize the team and kind of move forward. How many units can you build out of the MVP factory, minimal viable product?
We've theoretical capacity of about 200 modules. And we've also been developing pop-up factories. We live in a very mild climate. It gets hot in the summers, but if we've got shade structure over us, then it's pretty easy to expand. So we can very rapidly expand to multiples of that with the property that we've got for very low.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's very little overhead. This is just kind of like a small pole barn that you're setting up, right? For the most part.
Yeah, and then we can do these with shipping containers and roof structures over shipping containers. And we just got to get the sun off. We've got plenty of power out here. Texas is pretty power rich, and it's
right.
Not hard to expand. You don't need to have $10 million, $20 million to get into a factory.
Walk me through the product here. I mean, I'm seeing zip sheathing. I'm seeing 2x6. Is that 2x? Do you guys build 2x6 exterior walls in Texas, or is it 2x4 still?
So we are building with 2x4, 24 on center, unless something else is calling for it. The only reason most people build the 2x6s is because they can't get the insulation value out of cheap fiberglass in a 2x4 wall. And we've got exterior insulation on everything that we build. This is an earlier prototype, it looks like. We started out looking at this. This one has 2x6 rafters on the roof. And we even found that was inefficient. Even though it costs an order of magnitude less than trusses, it's still more complex than we wanted our systems. It sounds goofy, but just the fact of having guys set up on a miter saw the two different angles on the two different sides of those rafters was more thinking than I wanted anybody to have to do. Even if we've got it written down on there, we've got stop blocks on the cut stations and everything. It still required more thinking, and there were more missed cuts, and it still takes longer to install than if we just had trusses. So even though the trusses cost more, we moved to the trusses, and then we can just order those to whatever engineering load that we need.
Got it. And how finished is the product when it leaves your facility? Is it 90% complete, 95% complete minus the site work?
Yeah, if it's a single module, it's completely done. All you have to do is plug it in. So whatever foundation attachment you have, your electrical, sewer, and water line in, that's all you've got to do. If there's multiple modules, then there's going to be a little bit more seaming between them. But again, we take that into account. We've been there, we've done that, we've developed them. We know how it goes on site, and you want to minimize that as much as possible.
Sure. I'm just skipping through some of your product here and what you guys are building now. From a developer standpoint, if I'm a developer and I say, all right, Darren, why do I want to work with you over anybody else?
Because I'm awesome.
Awesome's good.
Yeah, it's not going to be the right product for everyone, right? We're going to design something that's going to be more function over form, right? They're not going to be gorgeous one-off products. We're not doing custom builds. We're doing something that we can design specifically to go through a factory and build production runs of. And we can scale things up. So if we're doing hospitality, right, we can scale all the finishes up. But again, we want to be doing production runs of things in order to keep our overhead low. That makes the most sense. Anybody that's doing a one-off custom builds, they're going to cost way, way more because there's way more overhead that goes into it. There's a lot more questions and answers and feedback that have to happen between them and the client. And we can do that same amount of feedback with a single client, but do, 4 or 100 homes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're essentially productizing the product or doing a kit of parts, right? Where it's repeatable process that gives you the efficiency to move quickly. And nobody really has to think about it after they do their first 10, right? You just know what you're doing. And that picks up the efficiencies big time. Absolutely. Right. So with this said, right now you're in Texas, but you can do pop-up factories anywhere?
We could, yeah.
And can you design them to work within any climate zone? Because we got a lot of climate zones here in the States.
Yeah, we'd have to definitely take those into consideration, but that's a model that we're looking at as we expand because it makes a lot of sense to have these regionally located where we need housing.
Yeah, yeah. And as you're growing, where are you guys at right now? Are you raising capital? Are you delivering product? Walk us through.
Yeah, so we've delivered product in small quantity. We are looking for the right partner to scale this thing. We've got everything lined up. We've done all the hard work up front, and we've poured everything we've got into it. Now we're looking to bring the right partner on to bring this at massive scale.
So you spend a lot of time researching the market, understanding the numbers, and doing all that. If I'm an investor and I'm saying, all right, what's the value for me in this, and why would I consider investing in ModMod or anybody else in the industry? Because there's a lot of factories coming online now, and I think this is a great kind of Q&A answer to say, hey, this is why this industry or what we're doing is so special, and obviously they want a return on their money typically.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's part of the whole piece that we've been developing is. When we initially went down this road, we looked at partnering with another manufacturer. And to do that, we bounced around the country looking at facilities, and there were a lot of self-limiting objections that they had. There aren't very many of these buildings designed to build houses out of. And it really turned into a $20 million investment before you've got any product coming off the line. And that just didn't seem really like the best move because we'd have to finance the facility, and then we would get a share of like 50% of the line of the product coming off of the line. And that was going to take a long time to get a return on. And doing our model, MVP factories, pop-up factories, that sort of thing, we could be $2 million into an entirely new facility and be cranking out product within 4 months, as opposed to the other way around where you're an order of magnitude more into it, 20 million before you've got product. Yeah. And that also allows us to pivot much faster because if you don't have the overhead, being a noose, then you can change your product line. You can experiment with things. You can do new prototypes. You can adhere to new codes that are coming out seemingly, every 6 months or so, depending on the area that you're in. It allows us a lot more adaptability.
Got it. And it sounds like it allows a lot more security for whoever's investing or partnering with you as well, right? Because it is somewhat predictable. And when you look for an investor, I'm just out of curious, is it about money, or is it about money and having a pipeline of product to deliver?
We're open to both. I mean, the more involved a person could be, that's obviously of more benefit to us, and we'd give a bigger piece of the company away to that end. The biggest or the most important play is that first year while you're ramping up and making sure that you've got a place to put the product. and show these developments that makes it real, right?
Absolutely. Walk us through some of these photos here. It looks like not only are you running a business, but you're a practitioner in the business as well.
Yeah. Yeah, prototyping and figuring out different materials. We're trying a bunch of different materials through the factory and how it works and timing everything and massive spreadsheets of everything that goes into it and the time it takes to do these things. We were playing with metal because it's bulletproof. Standing seam metal roof go on all of our units. There are no roof penetrations because that's going to be a failure point if there ever is one on a metal roof. Metal roof is bomber other than that. So our penetrations come out, gable end walls. And then it's just going through product. There's some things that we've done differently, like probably can't really see it in that picture, but there's LP smart side in the vertical siding, the board and batten behind me. And we would rip down the vertical siding to make battens that are much thinner than the big bulky ones that they offer, which is a lot cheaper than the product that they offer and allows us to make use of scrap. So the battens really came from scrap material. We're looking at everything and how do we minimize waste. A lot of companies say they minimize waste, but you look in their dumpster and it's another story. And we don't throw anything away unless it's like under 12 or 16 inches. We've found ways to make use of virtually everything. And that goes into the design as well, initially.
Yeah. So when you're setting up your jigs for your walls, your floors, and all of that stuff, and you're kind of taking in the factor of what the dimensional lumber actually is supplied at.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, love it. All right, here's some interior shots. Walk us through these next few photos.
So this was example of like a hospitality unit where you're not going to have a full kitchen, and this is also when we were using the shiplap interior, which the reason we tried that was we didn't want to be doing drywall. Drywall it's an ecosystem. If you have moisture in a structure, it's a risk when you're delivering something for cracks, and it takes a long time to go through the process and dry. When you're on the assembly line, it could take 3 days, and it adds a ton of humidity to the structure. And in building science, if you add humidity, it's gonna kill everything around it. So we did experiment with the board, or sorry, the shiplap there. It's a ton of work, and we're not using that anymore. We're using one of two products, either a 1/2-inch hardwood plywood that finished looks like level 5 drywall. It's amazing. And then there are no delivery issues with it. Or we're starting to use an MGO board. Yeah. And that we can use the same MGO board on the inside wall as we can using it for sheathing on the outside wall, which again, we can minimize skews. So everything we're doing is a constant look at how can we have one thing serve multiple purposes. Bathrooms is another one that I nerd out on, which seems funny, but like from a property maintenance standpoint, we have these really heavy duty shower stalls that are built like boats. They're one-piece fiberglass. There's no grout. There's no seams. There's nothing to hold moisture. And if they discolor in 20 years, you can have them refinished, right? Yeah. And it's way easier and faster for us to install this one piece. Then other things are like, we don't use that toilet anymore. We use a fully skirted toilet, which is a lot easier to clean. And then the bath fans, we use humidity and moisture sensing bath fans that are hardwired. There's no switch. They see you when you come in and they turn on, and then they turn on when the humidity level reaches above 60%. So you don't have to rely on the tenant to be turning them on or leaving them on long enough to bring all the humidity out. So you don't have any of those musty smells. You don't have any of the biological stuff setting up camp.
So it's a smart house keeping the tenants healthy.
Yeah, healthy is a big deal.
Yeah. Just some other bathroom views here. Now, is that the MGO board on the wall, or is that drywall?
That is the hardwood plywood.
That's the hardwood plywood. Look at that.
Yep.
All right. Love it.
Now, the one-piece tub shower set. This is a
LED light. Is that an LED light across the top of the ceiling, or is that a reflection?
Yeah, that is. Yep. Little accent piece.
Right.
Again, we're covering up the seam that was already there because there's a 4-foot wide piece of board and there's a 1-foot wide piece of board. And in that seam, we just put a light.
That's brilliant, actually. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You are awesome.
Thank you.
Mod. I love this. So, one of the things that I wanted to get on this is, Kaufman Builders. It's a German company, Kaufman. They have over $1 billion in European orders. And guess what they're doing? Very similar to what you're doing. Pop-up factories. They can go anywhere, build anything, go on a developer site. Very little overhead to get the production line up and running. And it's super, super efficient. Yep. And I think that's really important for people to understand. It's not always about a big factory that can just pump product out. There's other ways of doing it that make it more efficient, especially when the needs are all over the country in different pockets. And then you're never beholden to, well, it's over 600 miles away, so it doesn't economically make sense for us to ship, and all these other things that come about in these conversations. So, I love what you're doing, and I think that the way forward is, in my mind, and I'm seeing several other people come up with the same type of concept that you're doing, and that is the pop-up factory. How can you just be more efficient at what you do? Because automation does not do that until you get it at a massive scale. That's exactly. And then it's too expensive. Love it. Darren, is there anything that I missed in this conversation that you want us to cover?
I think we covered most of the bases there.
Yeah. Well, I got your website up here as well for everybody. So if people are interested, you can go to their website, ModMod Modular, right? Redefining affordable housing. I love the Make America Affordable Again. I'm not even going to ask where that was played from, but it rings well, because that's the whole idea is things are too expensive. My kids can't afford a house. Your kids can't afford a house if you have kids, and unless we help them. And then I don't even have the money to help them. So what do you do, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
I love it. Do you have any last words for us, Darren, before we wrap up the show?
Hey, Dave, so thanks so much for chatting with me and bringing me on.
Hey, listen, I love what you're doing, and hopefully people that are watching this, reach out to you, and you guys start collaborating and working with others. And we appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. We are in Toronto, Canada. That's right, Toronto, Canada. I don't even know if there's a Toronto, America, but we're in Toronto, Canada. And we're going to the Builders Show up here. I had no idea. They said it's like 18,000 attendees. So hopefully it's going to be a great show. Darren, don't go anywhere. I'll come back to you after the outro. But for the rest of you out there, listen, we can't do any or all this without all of our supporting members. Our community is growing. Our behind-the-scenes networking is growing. We are doing some amazing things. You wait for 2026. It's getting bigger, badder, and better. We had an amazing event out at Greenbuild in LA. We had our own stage, and we're not in Toronto for any other reason but to look at how this show and how we're going to take what we do on the road to truly bring innovation to housing, make it affordable, make it sustainable, not just on residential, but also on the commercial side. So everyone, we appreciate you out there. I'm Dave Cooper. Stay tuned for some live show action tomorrow from Toronto, Canada. We appreciate each and every one of you out there. We'll see you next time. Thank you. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you, and as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.